Hi, I'm Ben Ferguson, and welcome to your Amac Weekly News. First up, finally, Dr. Fauci has been busted officially lying to Americans. And this time, it's causing the mainstream media to have to backtrack on their lies as well. Up next, Florida gives power back to the American people in the battle against social media giants. And Bobby Charles, AMAC national spokesman, is here to chat about what is happening within the Biden administration when it deals with COVID-19 and Wuhan, China. But first, a quick reminder. Please make sure right now you share this video on all your social media platforms that you are on. Your AMAC Weekly News starts right now. The news is continuing to break in this country and around the world about the many lies that have come from Dr. Fauci, his team, and also the big lie that this COVID-19 virus came out of a wet market in Wuhan instead of an actual facility where they were working with infectious diseases. Now, one of Dr. Fauci's many lies is coming back to bite him in a big way. Fauci isn't the only one, by the way, having to pay the big price for being busted for not telling the truth to the American people. The entirety of the mainstream media are currently having to backtrack on literally everything they said about what they called a, quote, conspiracy theory involving Wuhan, China, and that wet market. Now, just this week, President Donald Trump came out and reiterated something he'd been saying since the very beginning. And when he said it, the media, only because it was Donald Trump saying it, immediately said it was a lie. It was a conspiracy theory, and that he was making things up. And anyone that repeated the Trump lie was also a conspiracy theorist who should be silenced and shut down on social media. Take a look at what President Trump had to say this week.
Well, I said it right at the beginning. That's where it came from. I think it was obvious to smart people that's where it came from. I have no doubt about it. I had no doubt about it. I was criticized by the press because China has a lot of people taken care of. They took care of Hunter. They took care of Joe. They took care of everybody, didn't they? And people didn't want to say China. Usually they blame it on Russia. It's always Russia, Russia, Russia. But I said right at the beginning it came out of Wuhan. And that's where all the deaths were. Also, by the way, when we first heard about this, there were body bags, dead people laying all over Wuhan province. And that's where it happened to be located. So to me, it was very obvious. I said it very strongly, and I was criticized. And now people are agreeing with me, so that's okay.
Now, you would assume that the media would not play politics with the President of the United States of America giving information to the public about a deadly virus. You would assume they certainly wouldn't side with the communist Chinese government or the corrupt World Health Organization. Yet, because of their hatred for Donald Trump and wanting to make sure that Donald Trump didn't get reelected, the media immediately came out and said that Donald Trump is basically crazy, that anyone that believes what he's saying is nuts. Now, here are just a few examples of what the media was actually writing about what they declare to be a conspiracy theory that we now know is more than likely probably factually correct and, well, totally true. Take a look at last May the 5th. CNN editor-at-large wrote this: Anthony Fauci just crushed Donald Trump's theory on the origins of the coronavirus. Last August, The Hill called the Wuhan lab origination theory, quote, baseless. In fact, on March the 31st of this year, NPR, you pay for this reporting with your tax dollars, actually went so far as to say this, quote, a hard-charging focus on hypothetical lab accidents might further bog down U.S.-China relations. Sounds like a headline that'd be written by a propagandist in China, except that was NPR in America. Relations probably wouldn't be so bogged down if China actually told the world the truth, and it could have saved millions of people's lives. Now, here is what Fauci said 1 year ago about the Wuhan origination theory on May the 5th, 2020.
If you look at the evolution of the virus in bats and what's out there now, it's very, very strongly leaning towards this could not have been artificially or deliberately manipulated, the way the mutations have naturally evolved.
Now, you have to step back for just a moment, and you have to ask yourself the basic question. Why was the media so hell-bent Why was Dr. Fauci so hell-bent on undermining the real possibility that this did not come from a wet market, and it actually came from a laboratory with actual intelligence that would back up that idea? It is because they hated Donald Trump so much. The story has now taken a huge turn. Dr. Fauci is actually admitting just this week that maybe he got things wrong. Take a look.
No, I'm not convinced about that. I think that we should continue to investigate what went on in China until we find out, to the best of our ability, exactly what happened. Certainly, the people who've investigated say it likely was the emergence from an animal reservoir that then infected individuals, but it could have been something else, and we need to find that out. So, that's the reason why I said I'm perfectly in favor of any investigation that looks into the origin of the virus.
Now, let me just clarify just how insane the backtracking is by the media at this point. Because of this admission by Dr. Fauci, even MSNBC's Joe Scarborough finally admitted Trump was right about something. I'm not kidding. He's now been forced to walk back all of his hatred towards Donald Trump that dealt with a deadly virus that cost millions of people around the world their lives just because they hated Donald Trump. And Scarborough now is trying to save his own career because he was peddling the lie of Fauci for the last year.
As we sit here, let me just write down and put into this box things that Trump got right. Here we go.
That's my makeup.
It's a big box. Things that he got right. So I put that in there.
Give me that.
One of them was the skepticism of the World Health Organization.
Yep.
And the fact that they continue to humiliate themselves by being obsequious to China.
Now, it wasn't just the media that was attacking Donald Trump. It was actually social media as well that attacked any conservative that asked any questions about the origins of COVID-19. Even Facebook was apparently trying to deliberately and purposely silence conservatives or even just Americans who were asking basic questions about the origins of COVID-19. We now know that through whistleblowers within Facebook. Now, meanwhile, the Biden administration's response to questions about an investigation into the origins of COVID-19 virus that have killed nearly 600,000 Americans, well, it kind of now looks like this.
We need access to the underlying data. We need access to the information that the Chinese government has in order to make a determination through the international bodies that would do this investigation. And that's something we've called for many, many times. And we've pressed with our international partners for the WHO to support an expert-driven evaluation of the pandemic's origins. We would certainly participate in that with all of our resources from the United States. But given it was an international pandemic, yes, it's killed, as you said, more than 500,000 people here in the United States, killed hundreds of thousands more around the world. We're going to do that in coordination with our international partners, continue to press the Chinese to release that data and information and play a constructive role in the second phase of the investigation.
So there you have it, folks. This is literally what an active cover-up looks like. More than 500,000 dead Americans, most likely, because of a leak from a lab in China. Yet the Biden administration's response is to rely on, as she just said, international bodies to investigate COVID's origins. This is how weak the Biden administration has made us in just a few months. We aren't even standing up for our own people, our own dead. In fact, our leadership is actually lying to the American people through Dr. Fauci. This should be concerning to every American. And the fact that our State Department, directed by the Biden administration, has been told to cease and desist having a real investigation into the origins of COVID-19 tells me one thing. This is a massive cover-up by the United States government, and all of us should be demanding answers not only of Joe Biden, but also of Dr. Fauci. So Florida Governor Ron DeSantis leading again in this country, signing a bill that is finally giving power back to the people in the battle against social media tech giants. And also the mainstream media, they don't like it. They're freaking out. Just take a listen to DeSantis himself on this new bill that threatens the power of big tech.
The bill we did today, Sean, goes beyond just the political candidates, and people can find, we have the whole rundown at rondesantis.com. But any Floridian who is deplatformed or censored would potentially have a right to sue big tech. We're making tech be transparent on their algorithms and on their terms of service and the criteria they use, because they don't apply it fairly. Twitter will ban Donald Trump as president of the United States, but yet they'll let the Ayatollah Khamenei talk about killing Jews. Are you kidding me? So we think this is the strongest thing that any state has done, and it needs to be done, Sean. We've got to protect people against big tech censorship.
Now, this all goes back to his goal of creating transparency in these tech companies that have taken it upon themselves to censor free speech that they don't like. DeSantis tweeted this in regard to the bill, saying, quote, Florida's big tech bill gives every Floridian the power to fight back against deplatforming and allows any person to sue big tech companies for up to $100,000 in damages. Today, we level the playing field between celebrity and citizen on social media. Now, this is a huge victory for American liberty. Every other state in the country should be doing the exact same thing. Now, at the same time as we experience this big win, we're also looking at another bill moving through the national government that Senator Marco Rubio says would allow the establishment media to engage in, quote, greater collusion with big tech companies from Silicon Valley. The Journalist Competition and Preservation Act, or JCPA, would create a special antitrust exemption for media companies, allowing them to collectively bargain with big tech companies in a manner that would otherwise be illegal. This is all so the media companies could try to force tech companies to pay them for content. Now, the bill does nothing to address concerns that big tech companies could just escalate already ongoing efforts to remove the content of conservatives and independent publishers that they don't like. Why are we creating more exemptions for companies that continue to attack and oppose free speech? Well, thankfully, we have groups like Project Veritas that revealed just this week what is truly going on behind the scenes within big tech. James O'Keefe of Project Veritas has released another set of exclusive whistleblower interviews within Facebook. This time, we found out about what Facebook is doing in order to target individuals who posted comments that Facebook decided was, quote, vaccine hesitancy. Yeah, that now gets you in Facebook jail. Just take a listen to O'Keefe in his own words.
Thanks, Sean. We've had two whistleblowers within Facebook come to us and leak us these documents regarding vaccine hesitancy. What does that mean? Essentially, Facebook has beta tested these algorithms. 1.5% of their almost 3 billion users are getting a tiered ranking system, something called vaccine hesitancy, Tier 1 and Tier 2. Tier 1 is alarmist and critical remarks about COVID and the vaccine, and Tier 2 is something called indirect vaccine discouragement. Now, what's remarkable about these private documents that Facebook has not wanted you to see until tonight is that Tier 2 says that even if the facts are true, that you will be targeted and demoted. Your comments will be targeted and demoted.
So not only has Facebook decided to ban anyone that asks major questions about the vaccine, but even if you say, I'm not sure or I'm going to wait, yeah, that now gets you in trouble and silenced on social media. And this is just a glimpse into what these social media giants are doing to silence anyone who doesn't say exactly what they believe you should be saying. Now, thanks to Project Veritas and Senator Marco Rubio and Governor DeSantis and many other conservatives are starting to get on this train and finally fight back. Now, we've got a long way to go. We can promise you here that Amac, we're going to do everything we can to protect your freedom of speech on these platforms. There seems to be a theme of the Biden administration, and that is to run away from their responsibilities, whether it be in the Middle East or dealing with the origins of COVID-19. Joining me now to talk about this is our national spokesman for AMAC and former Assistant Secretary of State under Colin Powell, Bobby Charles. Bobby, let's get straight into the biggest news coming out of this White House, and that is apparently the Biden administration has directed the Department of State to stop their investigation into the origin of the COVID-19 virus coming out of communist China, and basically saying, we'll let the world deal with figuring that out, the WHO and communist China. Your reaction to that, I think it's shocking.
Yeah, I mean, my reaction to that is that it's both irresponsible and highly suspect. I mean, you don't allow the fox to investigate the henhouse without expecting bad things to happen. And I think the way I would look at this is you have 2 or 3 states, United States states, Missouri, I think, Mississippi, maybe another one, suing communist China right now, trying to get a release from the Foreign Sovereign Immunity Act in order to allow them, as we do with terrorist states, to bring suit for the trillions of dollars of damage and wrongful death that China may well be responsible for here. So the last thing in the world I would do is let go the kite string. I wouldn't have the State Department or the Justice Department stop investigating. I would start them investigating. We also know that WHO is compromised. There's lots on the public record about that because of the Chinese influence in WHO. And I'll also say there are 2 or 3 other data points people ought to be thinking about. One is that last week, the Republicans on the Intelligence Committee in the House released a very compelling report. I encourage people to go to that report, and you can find my writings on it, by the way, at amac.us. But what it really reveals is that several things. One is that the evidence is now overwhelming, and that's their word, not mine, overwhelming. Circumstantial evidence, but circumstantial evidence is like you go to sleep at night, you wake up the next morning and there's snow on the ground and you say, I think it snowed.
It snowed, yeah.
Right, okay, so circumstantial evidence is fine. Direct evidence is you see it snowing. But the reality is they have said there is overwhelming evidence, Ben, that that virus came from the Wuhan lab. Now, it's also apparently clear that they used a particular kind of research intended to make the virus more virulent. Now, the argument that the Chinese have said about the lab's work is that they made it more virulent. They made viruses generally more virulent so they could find a way to beat them. That's a little suspect. That's like saying, I'm going to find a way to kill people better so that I can figure out how not to kill people better. I think we've got a lot of investigation that ought to be undertaken. And the reason that the world at large is resistant to this, and why Americans in the Democrat Party in particular are resistant, is that we're talking about trillions and trillions of dollars of damage if this was either intentional or reckless. And at the very least, maybe even if it was negligent. And what did we lose? How many million people have we lost so far? And I think
3 million plus so far.
There you go. And 165 million sickened. So if China is culpable for this, China needs to be held responsible. And I think that is the hot potato that the Biden administration doesn't want to be holding.
Well, I tell you what, Senator Paul has done a great job this week of actually getting not only Fauci a few weeks ago on the record, but he's now saying that he actually perjured himself before Congress and should be held accountable. He believes this is nothing more than a cover-up from the media and from the Biden administration because they refused to admit the facts early on that Donald Trump was saying over and over and over again that he didn't believe this came from a wet market, that you cannot trust the communist Chinese government and you can't trust the WHO. And they classified it as nothing but a conspiracy theory. They even trashed U.S. Senator Tom Cotton from Arkansas, saying that he was putting out conspiracy theories when he continued to ask questions and poke holes into the obvious misinformation campaign coming specifically from the communist Chinese government, not warning the world about what was going on here. And the scary part is we now know for a fact, and Dr. Fauci has admitted this, that American tax dollars were going directly to this lab in Wuhan, and we've been sending money there for years. And he says, well, it wasn't a lot of money. Well, he's already said it's more than $600,000. And he says, well, we trusted the scientists that we were giving the money to, so you don't have to worry about trusting or not trusting the communist government. You and I both know, no matter how good a person is, if you're under the system of communism and they decide to make you disappear or they tell you to say something or they come after you or your family, they control you and what you're doing in your research. And it's naive for us to think otherwise. I'll give you the last word.
No, you're absolutely right. And Ben, at the end of the day, if you track that money, follow the money, follow the money, follow the money. If that was happening at that time, how is it that Fauci earlier last year conveniently forgot those facts? If there was actually gain of performance, there are different names for it, but basically enhancing of viruses to become more dangerous, and the United States government, through a cutout, through a nonprofit, was actually giving money to that lab for doing it. That's a double. that's a double whammy, right? The first thing is that the Chinese are responsible for the release of a virus that they knew, I suspect, was man-made or was man-made enhanced. And they are responsible for not having alerted the world and preventing all this damage. And the second part of it is maybe there are even parts of the U.S. government that are culpable here for having known that this research was going on and actually financed some of it. I don't care whether you say
it's totally, it screams cover up when you see the WHO and China, who we're punting to investigate the deadliest virus in modern times. More than 3 million people who have died because of this virus. I'll leave it at that. Bobby, I appreciate you coming on as always. It's going to be very interesting to see where this ends up. That's it for this edition of your AMAC Weekly News. Quick reminder, if you haven't joined AMAC or renewed your AMAC membership, make sure you do it right now so you can continue to receive not only this program, but our incredible AMAC magazine. And you can get involved in the fight for our freedoms that are under attack in this country. Please also make sure you share this with your family and friends so they can watch AMAC Weekly News. I'm Ben Ferguson, and I'll see you back next week for our next episode.